Hey guys, it's me Simo Orahara, and in this video we're gonna talk about a truly special battle, one that proved Kubo can deliver incredible fights without falling back on lazy writing. Just pure fun, pure excitement, and pure bleach. And this wasn't just any battle, it happened right at the peak of one of the greatest arcs in the entire world of manga and anime. And I'm talking here about none other than Zaraki Kenpachi versus Kaname Tosen, a fight that, in my opinion, might even contain strong hints about Zaraki's connection to the realm of hell. And of course guys, Bleach has no shortage of amazing battles. We've got the classic fights of Ichigo, the memorable clashes between other captains, but this one had something unique that set it apart from the rest. One side of the fight had to figure out the enemy's abilities entirely on their own. No hints, no convenient explanations, and that's the important because you know guys, in Bleach, a lot of fights end because the enemy literally explains their abilities to their opponent. Something we saw a lot in the Vizar's battles and even in some Quincy arc fights. That's why guys, for me, I say Zaraki vs Tosen isn't just a standout fight. It's truly remarkable fight in Bleach anime. The way it was built up, the fight itself, the flashback that followed, and the overall context, which even hinted at Zaraki's true strength and even about the hell itself. All of these elements, all of these ingredients came together to make this battle exceptional. But before we get to all of that guys, please make sure to hit the like button and drop a comment about the video so it can reach more fans. And if you want to support me, you can do so through channel membership, super thanks, or on Patreon. And thank you guys so much for your support. One note guys, before we start breaking everything down, I want to quickly address one thing, because I know some people will bring it up and try to drive the video in a completely different direction. I'm talking about how Zaraki, who was once defeated by a boy with an incomplete Shikai, later managed to face two captains and even defeat one of them in Bankai. Now, this is old, very old debate, and it's a topic that's honestly outdated. Why? Because actually Kubo himself already explained exactly how Zaraki's and Ichigo's powers work. In short, Zaraki's strength was sealed, and every time he fought an opponent who pushed him close to death, one of those seals would break, allowing him to recover more and more of his true strength. So after the fight with Ichigo, it's not that Zaraki suddenly became stronger, it's that part of his enormous original power came back to him. And if you want to understand this in more depth, check out Zaraki's battle against Unohana and also chapters 541 and 542. Where Ichigo's true power is revealed. And I bring this up guys so we can focus entirely on the fight we're here to talk about. And let's start by the context. The context of this battle is important. At the time, the Zaraki was in total chaos, a literal war over beliefs. Some captains like Okitaki and Kyuraku were against Rukia's execution, and others like Komomora followed Yamamoto's ideals, upholding the law no matter the circumstances. And then there were others like Tosen, a traitor still wearing the mask of justice, who up until that point was Komura's best friend. But Zaraki on the other hand didn't care about any of that nonsense. Not Rukia's execution, not Aizen's schemes. All he wanted was to meet Ichigo again and fight him, because Ichigo has given him something he wanted so badly, the pure joy of battle. And so their separate paths eventually lead to one point of collision, Sajin and Tosen versus Zaraki. At first the two captains fought him together, but Zaraki quickly showed them that even combined, they couldn't touch him as long as they were fighting only in Shikai. They would need more, much more, to stand a chance. And that meant Bankai. That's when Tosen made his choice. He told Komomora that he would be the one to face Zaraki using Bankai. And one of the most fascinating things about this fight guys is how Tosen's philosophy stood in a complete opposition to Zaraki's philosophy. Yet surprisingly, they shared a few small similarities. Both had their life path shaped by a woman. When he was young, Zaraki fought Unohana Yachiro, the very first Kenpachi, and from that day on, he saw her as the person he respected the most. Tosen, on the other hand, was guided by his friend Kakyu, whose death at the hands of a noble Shinigami drove him to take the path he did, eventually falling under Aizen's influence. But despite those small similarities, guys, their ideas about battle couldn't be more different, and that's a part of what made this fight so compelling. Tosen believed that what truly mattered to a warrior wasn't their strength, but their fear of battle. He thought that understanding fear is what gives warriors the strength to pick up their sword and fight, not just for themselves, but for those who also share the same ideas and same philosophy of fear. However, guys, all of these ideals vanish when faced with this man, this expression, these eyes that have no place for such words in their vocabulary. For Zaraki, battle is everything. Fighting is the rush, the thrill, the purest form of joy. It's the happiness hormone that gives his life meaning. And that's why, as I said before, this fight was special. It all began with this iconic moment, Tosen moving his zanpakuto as he explained the 3 ways to become a captain. And one of them was to defeat a captain in front of at least 200 officers. And this tradition is known to exist for generations in Squad 11. And then Tosen made it clear, releasing his Bankai and fighting Zaraki wasn't about personal grudges. It was about restoring peace. And this is where Tosen raises his Bankai. The full name of his Bankai is Suzumushi Tsushiki Enma Kurogi. Tosen's Bankai can be classified as a domain type Bankai, meaning it activates within a fixed area. And in that area, no one but Tosen and his opponent should remain. And that's why when Tosen was about to release his Bankai, Sergeant Komamura immediately moved out of its range. Now this Bankai is the embodiment of the concept of fear of that, or death itself, or the black hell. I mean, call it what you will. Tosen's Bankai is honestly one of the most terrifying abilities in Bleach, especially since Kubo gave it several Buddhist death-related symbols. For example, the name Enma in Buddhism refers to the king of hell, the judge who passes judgment on the souls of the dead. So when Tosen activates his Bankai and traps his opponent inside it, he literally becomes like a judge sentencing his enemy within that black void. But Kubo didn't stop there at just the name Enma. He extended the theme into the visual design of the Bankai itself. And specifically, guys, the strange inscriptions on the ceiling of the Bankai's dome. And those inscriptions, guys, actually reference the 9 stages of decay from an ancient Buddhist art form known as Kusuzu. In this tradition, guys, each stage depicts the gradual decomposition of the human body, from corpse to bones to dust. And here is what each stage represents and how they connect to the kanji we see inside the Bankai. For example, guys, skin rupture with blood and fluids leaking. This is where the kanji blood comes in. And we have the 6th, scattering of the organs and flesh. This could be represented by scatter, and only the skeleton remains. Here's where we see bone. So in essence, guys, Tosen's Bankai is a literal manifestation of every terrifying aspect of death. Even its ability reflects this. It robs the opponent of their hearing, sight, smell, and even their ability to sense Ryatsu, spiritual pressure. The enemy is left quite literally, as Tosen described it, in a black hell, with Tosen himself acting as Enma, the ruler and the judge of that hell. And that's why I said this battle was different from the rest, because in this fight the opponent wouldn't be able to hear Tosen's words when he explaining his abilities. Meaning that even if Tosen did explain his ability, the enemy couldn't hear it, and therefore couldn't exploit any weaknesses in that explanation to turn the tables on him. And that's the mistake we saw with characters like Hiraku, Rose, or even Asuka Naklovar against Nimaya. And now, guys, here is the fascinating part. Out all of the characters in Bleach, it was Zaraki who had to be put into this kind of test to find a way out of this trap. And that's what made this fight a unique one and challenge for him, because Zaraki's style had always been about direct confrontation, enjoying the thrill of battle without giving much thought to strategy. But in a situation where he couldn't see his opponent, couldn't hear them, couldn't even sense their reactions, Zaraki had no choice but to use his mind to try and escape this hell. And what's even more interesting is that in such a situation, as Tosen himself said, even the most skilled and experienced swordmen would struggle to use their mastery because fear would creep into their hearts from the sudden, overwhelming change. And that's why Zaraki was the perfect person for this, because his personality and fighting spirit made him immune to the panic and fear that Tosen relied on to crush his enemy without effort. And as Tosen described it, that hellish space was Zaraki's home, a place he was used to, one that posed no threat to him. Despite losing all his senses, Zaraki didn't feel any fear. Instead, he used his mind. Normally, as I said, in such condition, the mind would fail. But for Zaraki, it came just in time. Even without hearing anything from Tosen, Zaraki knew he could no longer see, hear, or even smell, and his reactor sensing was gone too. The only sense he was sure he still had was touch, because he could feel his hand gripping his sword. So not panicking and realizing this truth made Zaraki reveal that hidden smile. The very smile that made Tosen see him as a true monster. What I love the most about that fight is watching Zaraki think and try to find a solution without any clues from Tosen, his enemy. And so as Zaraki thought he reached a conclusion, it would be the best to expose himself to a direct attack so he could grab hold of Tosen. And that's exactly what he did. Once Zaraki got his hand on him, he could sense Tosen's presence again and landed the finishing blow that nullified the Bankai's effects. So, in general guys, the fight was exciting and unique because of Tosen's technique. But there were also deeper symbols in the battle. They could simply represent Zaraki's strength as a character, or they might be intentional hints from Kubo, suggesting that Zaraki has some connection to the hell itself. First of all guys, think about the Buddhist symbolism throughout the fight. One of the names of the Bankai is Enma, the king of hell, and during the battle Tosen represents Enma, controlling the black hell, while Zaraki is like the sinner, the one who has disturbed peace. Adding to that is the title Kubo gave when Tosen released his Bankai, Demon Loves the Dark. I only associate the word demon with Zaraki, especially since later when Zaraki himself released his Bankai, his appearance resembled a demon or Oni, with fire red coloring and distinctive horns. So my headcanon guys is that the battle between Tosen and Zaraki may be a symbolic reflection of something that happened to Zaraki in the past. Zaraki could be a demonic being, and his Bankai is the manifestation of his true form. Tosen in the Soul Society battle represents Enma, or the ruler of hell, or any gatekeeper. And when Zaraki emerged from his Bankai, it was as if Zaraki himself had emerged from hell, returning to the Soul Society. Of course guys, it could be something else. But the symbolism throughout that fight and its connection to hell all point in a remarkable way towards Zaraki himself. And then guys, what do you think about that fight? What do you think about the points that I talked about regarding hell and Zaraki and the fight itself? Tell me guys about your opinions in the comments and see you in my next video.